What's going on, traders, and welcome to this week's episode of the Weekly Watchlist. In the Weekly Watchlist, I do a technical analysis and give you some of my thoughts on the tickers here on the left. We have the broad market comprised of SPY, the Qs, and IWM. After that, we look at some companies. We have Apple, Netflix, Tesla, Alibaba, Facebook, NVDA, ROKU, Microsoft, AMD, McDonald's, and Amazon. If you'd like to see me add anything to this list, let me know down below in the comments section, or feel free to shoot me an email. We can certainly look at the chart in next week's video. And with that, let's hop into the broad market. Alrighty, so here we are looking at our SPY weekly chart. You can see our weekly bar is a bit of a hanging man candle, very similar to this one here, except we are slightly green on the week. But two major things to keep in mind is it's a weekly hanging man at resistance here, weekly hanging man at resistance here. Next thing we look at is the candle that follows. Big pullback week, consolidation week, and we bounced off of our 50 SMA on the weekly here. So what will we see in this upcoming week? Will we see quite as nasty as a pullback? Nice big red candle like that on this coming week? Who knows? No one can say for sure, but if we zoom into the daily, I'll give you some reasons why we may or may not see that week. Alrighty, so here is the daily chart on SPY. Some reasons why we may not see such a nasty pullback on the week is because of our closing candle here on Friday. Very clear area of support down here at 291.37, and even more clear level of support down here at 289.50. This is why we've put in a higher low on the daily chart. We're continuing to move in the stair steps in the upwards direction. Next thing we need to see is a higher high, and this is essentially clearing the all-time high here at 294.95. I think even if we just see a 5-cent move higher to the psychological number at 295, that would be a step in the right direction. Based on what happens off of that number will determine whether or not we continue to see an uptrend or we give up our higher highs and we see a lower high form, and that would again possibly be a signal that we see a week of consolidation, as we did in the last hanging man situation on the weekly. So areas to keep in mind, obviously our all-time high 294.95, and then any sort of pullback we want to see 289.52 hold, but ideally we're looking for a higher high to form and a higher set of lows to form. Technology sector looking really good, consolidating here after a nice move in the upwards direction. We're looking for a breakout over 79.70 or a breakdown below 77.70. Next up, we have the healthcare sector. You can see a very nice V-shaped recovery based off of our sell-off here. We're pretty much back into the range we were in prior to this news and sort of nastiness happened. Next place we want to see the prices come are up here to $91. If we can get up to there, we would essentially be back in our consolidation zone of this move here and potentially move higher after that. XLF, our financial sector, is looking very good. We have 3 knocks on our door at 28.13. It's looking more than likely that we have a breakout above this level and we see continuation after this nice bullish move in the upwards direction. This could potentially be a way that SPY continues to put in a daily higher high or just continues to maintain higher lows if we can get a breakout in this sector. Checking out the VIX here quickly, you can see that we did violate our trend line. We had a little spike here. However, that spike was quickly negated the next day on Friday as price, I guess, essentially came back down into the range. We'll update our trend line here. Trend line now looks something like that. We're still putting in daily higher lows. As long as this happens, again, I think the market stays in the grind zone and just continues to move higher and higher and higher. Alrighty, moving into QQQ now. You can see we've sort of had a couple weeks worth of consolidation now. This is our previous all-time high at 187.53. We've seemed to hang on to that level here based on that day. We'll get rid of this, clear up the chart a bit, and I think QQQ looks good for another breakout over this level here at 191.32. You can see how many knocks on the door we've had. I think essentially we see a break there and a move up to 195 psychological. That would be a good place to see some sellers step in. And then again, obviously, if we see a continued move in the market overall, in the broad term, I think like we see 300 on SPY, we see 200 on the Qs, which is technology, essentially continuing to just push higher and higher and higher and higher. So we've held on to our weekly or daily trend line here, slightly getting below it that day, but now we're above it. Again, looking for a breakout over 191.32. IWM looks good. We got the breakthrough we were talking about. We did find some solid support off of this level, the 200 and the 50 SMAs. So congrats if you're a buyer there. Obviously, you had nice follow through on the support and through that resistance level. Our next target is up at 162.82. If we can see that level, expect a little bit of consolidation and pullback around there. Again, you're going to have to play this one depending on how the overall market is reacting. IWM has tended to act as a leader in the past, but now that it's been lagging behind, I think that it could essentially just follow the market now and not necessarily be a leader. Again, we're sort of in the middle of a range here. Unlike the other indexes, we're not at an all-time high. We're essentially 50%, maybe a little better than that, in between high and low of these, essentially this big swing here in the market since, what was it, September. So keep that in mind. It'll essentially just follow the market now that it's in the middle of the range. If the market rolls over, expect the IWM just slowly rolls over and dies, or if it continues to grind higher, look for 162, possibly 165 on the upside, and then after that, there's not much, or I guess there is if we scroll back a little bit. 170 is our next resistance, and then our all-time high would be at 173.39. So that is the IWM chart. Jumping into our companies now, we have Apple. Apple has a beautiful chart. You can see, as we talked about, our target at 215 was reached. We had earnings, huge gap up into the level as we discussed, and now we're seeing our previous high little top here act as support, which is exactly what we want to see. That's how this pattern has essentially been playing out for weeks now. So we're seeing this hold as support. Our next thing to do on Apple is to see a retest of this level up here at 215. If we see a retest there, we're looking for a breakout above. And we don't really have much in the way of resistance above us. 215 is sort of a really thick zone. After that, our resistance point would probably be around 223.11 based on some of these highs in here. We'll draw that one in like that. So look for 223.11 on the upside if we can break out of this pattern one more time above 215. On the downside, our supports are mapped out for us as these prior highs have all acted as support in the past. So keep that in mind on Apple. Netflix is continuing to just move around in its essentially upwards channel. You can see this past week was pretty bullish. We had a small red day on Friday and then a continued green week right up to our resistance at 386.80. I would say it's sort of this zone is going to give way after we've had, again, a couple knocks on the door here. If we can break out above that, we're looking for the upper end of the channel, which puts us somewhere around 395, depending on where we are throughout the week, possibly 400. That is quite a bit away, but $400 would be certainly a psychological level to play on Netflix. Anything below that, we're looking for the 50 SMA to hold as support first. Then I would say these levels in here at 365.50, just about, based on this little double bottom we have here. On the upside, again, if we can break through 400, it looks like Netflix has some room to run. Breaking through 400 would essentially mean our all-time high is in sight at 423.21. So that's way up here. Again, some key areas to get through before we even think about that level. But 400 and then that. On the downside, we have this mapped out for us. Checking out Tesla now, seeing a nice bit of recovery here after the panic. So buyers have stepped in and bought up prices off of the lows here. You can see we have a nice, I would call it a triple bottom even, right around here at 231.50. Because of that, obviously we saw a continued move higher as prices held here. But now we're seeing our resistance zone come into play at 254.25, and then we have yet another set of resistance points here at 258.78. So key area for Tesla to sort of get through, our descending resistance trend line is going to be coming into play. So I would watch for prices to get negated around this area, potentially pull back a little bit, and then move higher. Always the first knock on the trend line is a touchy one, as you can see every time. Boom, rejected. Boom, rejected. Never really breaking out of this one. This one's been really strong, so keep that in mind on Tesla. I would watch for a pullback if we can get into this level. Alibaba had a nice breakout over this level that we had been talking about. We even cleared that next small little resistance point here at 189.69. You can see prices have continued to move higher, and right now we're pretty much looking at $200 resistance to come into play a little bit sooner than that at 198.21, but $200 would be a nice target for Baba. Anything on the downside, we're looking for this level to hold on the way down. If we see a back test of this level, certainly buyable on the first touch. That is around 188.05. So if we get a pullback, look for it to be a buyer around that level, and then a continued move higher up to that 200 target. No real resistance in that area other than the 198.21. Facebook still holding on to its sort of gap up madness. Again, we talked about when these gap ups, big gap ups happen above support, we sort of just look for them to go sideways and sort of consolidate essentially. So still seeing that on Facebook. If you wanted to get real picky and draw in a pattern, you could draw in a little something like this. We have sort of a little wedge forming. So if you want to play in between this and look for a breakout one way or another, you could do that. A little too micro for my liking. However, I would just look for a breakout above this sort of 198.50 level if we can get back up there. Again, 200 will act as psychological resistance, but a move above there could be nice. Or a breakdown below our key support here at 188.30 for a bit of a gap fill and then a move higher. NVIDIA had a bit of an interesting week. A little bit of a gap down to start off, on Friday, and then coming in Monday, sort of going sideways. I'd say we're looking at a breakout, or not a breakout, but we're looking for prices to get back into the zone between 183 and 193.63. So if we can get back into this range and sort of consolidate and tighten up a little bit, then we would look for a breakout above 193 on any sort of attempt at this level. Again, keep in mind that descending 200 SMA is looming right overhead. As time goes on, essentially that will start to coincide with this level. Might make for a nice breakout if we can consolidate enough underneath it, prices to find acceptance there and then move higher. But on the way down, we have very clear support down here with our 50 SMA right below us, 174.30 on the downside, and anything lower than that is quite a bit away, but 164.71 if we give that up. ROKU is still in its little bit of an uptrend here. You can see we've gotten back into the zone of the ascending support trend line. So we'd like to see this hold. We have a bit of a hammer here on Friday, coinciding with the high of Wednesday that was. So look for a small breakout possibly on Monday morning as we sort of get above this resistance level. If that happens, look for prices to come up to 68 just about. If that doesn't happen and we see rejection here, again looking for this trend line to hold, 63.39, so 63.40 seems to be a very important level for the price. If it can stay above that, then I'd say we're continuing on our path in the upwards direction. So Microsoft was a great one. We had a big gap up, gap filled. You can see the prices came back down to fill the gap, and now we're moving off of it in the upwards direction. Clear all-time high resistance, going to be drawn in up at the top at 131.37, so right in there. If we can get back into this level, again, still blue sky territories. We're just looking for psychological numbers to play. This one wasn't that nice. I'd say 131 was the level there to play. But gap fill, reversal, possibly retesting the 131. Anything on the downside, our support we would want to see hold is essentially the trend line or this level here at 120.82. AMD is essentially just chop fest going sideways, doing nothing. Looks like it has some good range here, $2.37 range here on Wednesday. So if you got in any of that volatility, any of that action, good for you. But essentially, we're just looking at our supports and resistances here. We have 26.82 on the downside, which has been holding, and we have 28.88, so almost $29 on the upside, which has been keeping the prices down. We're essentially looking for a price move to come out of this level and retest 30. If we can get that, that would be a bullish move, obviously. If we see a turnaround here, we're just sort of stuck in this channel. If we see a attempt at 26.82, then we see a follow through to the downside. We're looking at our support trend line to be coming into play in our 50 SMA. If that doesn't hold, we're looking at 24.62 based on our low here. So everything is mapped out for us. On the upside again, $30 or our upper resistance trend line. Downside, same thing, support trend line, 50 SMA, and then 24.62. McDonald's, these chart plays are just so easy to see, guys. It's great. It's great seeing how this happens. So retesting our highs here at 193.15. Perfect retest of the highs. We've had this level drawn in for a while now. You guys have all seen it. Perfect retest and bounce. Next thing we're looking to do is come back up and test 200. That's beautiful. Touch 200 psychological to the T in blue sky territories. So if you played that resistance there, good for you. We'll draw in a price level at 200. We're looking for a retest of 200 and continuation to our next psychological level at 205. If that doesn't happen, we see a double top here at 200. Look for a retest of 193.15. Amazon had a pretty rough, or not rough, but choppy week, essentially going downwards for the beginning of the week and then taking it all back with a very confusing gap up here on Friday. Probably some news or something I'm not aware of. However, we're back at not all-time highs, but approaching the all-time highs. That is up there at 2050, just about. We'll call it 2050 to play a nice round number. So yeah, we're looking good. We've cleared our high here. We're above resistance. I would look for a continuation higher. 2000 is going to be our next psychological resistance. Possibly look for that if the market continues to move higher. Anything on the downside, we're looking for a retest of our trend line here. You can see it sort of acted as support here, and that's where this sort of gap came from. So if we see a retest of that level, it might be viable for an intraday bounce, possibly something more than that. But yeah, pull back into this level. Upside target 2000. Alrighty guys, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Weekly Watchlist. If you enjoyed or learned something, leave this video a thumbs up. If you'd like me to go over any other tickers, let me know down below in the comments section. And as always, subscribe for more of this content. I wish you a green trading week.